Good morning, everybody. You happy to be here this morning? On a beautiful Father's Day Sunday it is. Are you thankful to be a Christian? You are a child of the Father. You are a child of God. And as I said, this is Father's Day, but perhaps you don't have much of a relationship with your father. Everyone has a different history, and so maybe that is the case for you. But all of us get to claim, all of us, whether you're saved or not, get to claim in some capacity to be children of God because we are all made by Him. And those of us who are Christians carry that distinction of being children of God in an adoptive, really familial sense through Jesus Christ. And so in that mindset, regardless of your earthly relationships that exist here below, above us, we have a Father. And so if nothing else, we can appreciate Him this Lord's Day as we do every Lord's Day and every day in between. I'm very thankful for the song that was just led. I have not, maybe I'm forgetting, I'm getting older, but man, I don't think I've sung that song in about 20 years since I was in preaching school. That was a favorite of one of my mentors and instructors, Curtis Cates, who passed away a few years ago. And so when I think of that song, I think of him, as I think of many mentors and father-like figures on days like today. But I would like us to spend our sermon this morning going to, as was read just a moment ago from Proverbs, going to Proverbs, but also after we do that, we're going to jump over to Ecclesiastes and then just spend a quick minute in Song of Solomon. Those three books together constitute the so-called wisdom literature books of the Bible. They are penned by the wisest man the earth has seen, not counting the Lord, that is to say Solomon. He wrote them predominantly, at least Proverbs and Ecclesiastes especially, were written from the standpoint of a father giving advice to his son. And so from that mindset, that's why it's, I guess, appropriate for this particular Lord's Day. Song of Solomon, of course, is written as a series of loving exchanges between a betrothed, a loved man to his betrothed, and she back to him. But of the first two, it's written from the perspective of a father to a son, giving godly advice, giving good wisdom and instruction and counsel. And as the reading gave us, the warning that goes with it, if you keep reading from Proverbs 1, if you keep the instruction of your father, and if you keep the commands of your mother, then it will be good for you. You'll be able to wear wisdom like a badge of distinction, not in a prideful way, but as a way for others to see you and say, hey, that's a person I can count on. That's a person I can depend on. That's a wise person. If I need help, I can go to that person. If I need counsel, I can seek out that person. Wisdom offers that. It's in the same way that foolishness, which is also an outward thing we show, will make people say, I don't need to talk to that guy. If I'm having a trouble, if I'm having problems, I better not ask her about it. I better not ask him about it because I see the foolishness. Wisdom is the opposite. Wisdom lets people seek you out. Well, Solomon is the wisest man. And Solomon has a lot of good wisdom to impart and to share. We would spend the entire day, and I mean all of today. We'd be here until midnight, like back in Paul's day, just studying Proverbs. So instead, I would encourage you to read Proverbs on your own and to study Proverbs one chapter a day for the entire month. There's 31 chapters in Proverbs. There's usually 31 days in a month. So if you get it to like June, a month that has 30 days, then just read Proverbs chapter 31 twice over, or take a day off or something like that. It doesn't matter. Read two chapters, I mean. Whew, it's hot up here. Let's start over. Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. They're really good books. Here's what I want to do with them. All right, here's what I want to do with them this morning. I want to take Proverbs and I want to teach you just one chapter of Proverbs, and from that one chapter, really half a chapter, I want to give some advice to fathers. I know Proverbs is written from a father giving advice to his son, but we're going to turn that around and see how that good advice we give our kids, we need to be reminded of too as dads, as parents in general. We need that good advice. If it comes from the Bible, it doesn't expire ever. And then we're going to jump over to Ecclesiastes and consider some specific advice to sons and some things that Solomon tells his sons. And then, for just a quick cup of coffee, we're going to be in Song of Solomon and end this morning by considering some advice given to husbands. Now, I know there's nothing about wives there. There's nothing about daughters there. There's nothing about daughters, wives. What did I leave out? Daughters. Mothers, yes, thank you. Golly, I am just off today. Daughters, wives, mothers, yes, they're not there. But if you remember 1 month ago, it was Mother's Day, and we talked about mothers. And mothers get all kinds of sermons, and mothers get all kinds of Bible topics and devotionals, so much more than fathers do. Especially in our modern culture, which is not religious in any way. Our modern culture has really tried to water down and diminish the importance of fathers and reduce the importance of fathers, but the Bible gives great significance to the role of a dad, gives great import to being a father, because it is the case that God gave himself the title of father, not mother. And there are some motherly qualities and characteristics that you see about God in heaven, but he calls himself a father. And so when I get to be a dad, I have to remember that I am supposed to be emulating my Father in heaven. So this sermon this morning is for dads, it's for sons, and it's for husbands. Let's begin in Proverbs. I want you to open your Bibles to Proverbs chapter 3, and we're going to notice the first 12 verses, but we're going to notice them kind of half and half. Not 1 through 6 and then 7 through 12. Rather, we're going to notice the odds first, verse 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and then we're going to go back and look at the evens, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Why? Because if you pair these verses up, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, what you find is you get a command, and then you get the reason for the command. You get the do this, and then why you should do this, as sounds like fatherly advice. But as we're going to focus on for this first point, this is not just advice for kids. Dads need to hear this too, mothers as well. This is advice for parents to consider as well. So let's consider the odds. Read first just the first three of those, verse 1, 3, and 5. My son, forget not my law, but let your heart keep my commandments. Don't read verse 2, skip to verse 3. Let not mercy and truth forsake you. Bind them about your neck and write them upon the table of your heart. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not unto your own understanding. Verse 7, be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. Verse 9, honor the Lord with your substance and with the first fruits of your increase. And verse 11, my son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. 6 important, good, distinctive commands that, of course, a father would give to his son, but they don't stop being good advice. They don't stop being important and needful things for dads to hear as well, or for mothers too. So go back to verse 1. My son, forget not my law, but let your heart keep my commandments. Lesson is this: you are not going to accidentally be faithful. You are not going to accidentally do right. It has to be a concerted effort. It has to be a deliberate choice. You are going to make the decision to keep, that word means to guard, to hold close, the Word of God. You are going to make the decided action to obey the commands. You cannot just sleep with the Bible under your pillow and expect by osmosis the Bible just to seep into your brain. You must read it and study it and then obey it, the B-I-B-L-E. Look at verse 3. Let not mercy and truth forsake you. Bind them about your neck, write them upon the tablet, write them on the scroll, if you will, of your heart. Do not abandon mercy and truth. Do not forsake mercy and truth. Keep mercy and truth close. Regularly practice mercy and truth. If you are not a person who regularly practices mercy and truth, do you know what will happen? What will not happen is you will not suddenly find that there are no opportunities to be merciful. That's not what happens. You will not just suddenly find there are no opportunities to practice truth or to be reliable, to be someone who is counted on. Rather, those opportunities will continue to come, but because you don't practice mercy regularly, you will not see with eyes of mercy. Because you are not a constantly practicing truth person, you will not see the need to be reliable and to be verifiable and to be dependable to other people, which is really the idea behind the word truth there. Those opportunities are going to keep coming your way, but because you have not regularly exercised those spiritual muscles, they will go right beside you. They'll go in one way and pass you by, and you'll never have any chance you'll never take the chance to practice them as you ought. And so Solomon's advice is, don't let them forsake you. Don't ignore them. Don't reject them. Don't give them a cold shoulder, because if you do, they'll find mercy and truth personified. Will find someone else to make them a part of their lives. And then who will you be? An unmerciful, unreliable person, no good to anyone. Verse 5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. Lesson, you don't always know what's right. Again, that's a dad talking to a son. You think a dad doesn't need to hear that? You don't always know what's right. You don't always have the answer. You don't always know which way to go. Trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, He'll go on to say. But look at verse 7. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord. Depart from evil. A father, generally speaking, at least up to a certain age, is going to be wiser than his son. He's lived longer. He's seen more. He's done more. You can describe a dad as like a little jack of all trades. He's good at pretty much starting you on the path to do just about anything in this life, because he's done a little bit of everything as it comes with experience. But don't think that you have all the answers. Don't think that you know all the things. Appreciate the fact that you serve a God who has literally done everything that is good and has seen everything under the sun, because He made the sun and all that is under it. Verse 9, honor the Lord with your substance and with the first fruit of your increase. Give God what is right, not what is left. Give God from the right hand, not from the left hand, to use those two in antiquity. You may be a left-handed person. I'm not trying to insult you. It just is a fact that historically you're the odd ones, you're the strange ones, you're the ones who are using as a dominant hand the dishonored hand. So that's on you because I'm a right-handed person. So it used to be in antiquity the right hand was the dominant hand, was the hand that gave the blessings. You want to sit at the right hand of the king, not necessarily the left hand of the king. So when you're going to give to God, don't give from the left hand, give to God from the right hand, because that's a way of expressing I'm giving God the bulk, I'm giving God the best, I'm giving God the first fruits, the cream of the crop, the top of the heap. Don't give God from the bottom of the barrel. Don't scrape the bottom of the barrel where the corn or whatever it is you've been collecting is all smushed and broken and ruined. Don't give God that. Give God what is right to give God. Don't give God what's left. Don't give God what's left over. Don't give God the dregs, the scum at the bottom. Don't give God the hand-me-downs that you were going to get rid of anyway. No, you give God the best, and he'll reward you. But we'll get to the reward in a second. Finally, verse 11, despise not the chastening of the Lord. This verse even begins with my son. Okay, well, dads need to hear this too. Appreciate your spanking. See, my father still lives. Melvin Leon Martin still lives on a farm. I don't know if you knew this. I grew up on a farm. Way back in the day, I used to be there. And way back in the day, I used to get spankings like all the time. But I'm too old to get a spanking now. In fact, I remember the day. I should have thrown myself a party when he said, you're too old for me to spank you. And I thought, hallelujah, finally it ends. You know what? I am not too old to be spanked by my Father in heaven, and neither are you. My dad, physically, thankfully, cannot bend me over his knee and wear me out. I bet you there's times since I've been too old that he's wanted to, but he cannot anymore. You will eventually, if you have children, will have children grow up old enough, Lord willing. Well, you will not be able to spank them anymore, but that doesn't mean that they will not need discipline. You who are now too old to be disciplined, still need discipline. You need to appreciate the spanking of the Lord. You need to appreciate when your Father in heaven says, no, you should not have, or you should do this instead. Appreciate your spanking, dads. You need that too. Those are the odds. Let's go to the evens. Look at verse number 2. Remember, verse 1, don't forget the law. Keep the commandments. Why, Dad? Well, for length of days, for long life, for peace, will those things add to you. If you are a person who reliably keeps the word of God, you'll usually, generally speaking, live longer. Fools tend to die early because fools tend to say, I bet I could jump that. Fools tend to say, I bet I could eat that. Fools tend to say, I bet I could do that, when wise people say, no, absolutely not, no way. Wise people tend to live longer. Keep the commands of God, you'll live longer. Listen to God's instruction. It's not just about how to get to the next life. A lot of it is how to live right in this one. Keep the commands of God, you'll live longer. And you'll have a happier life when you do, as he says, not just long life and length, but peace will be added to you. Verse 3, let not mercy and truth forsake you. Why? Verse 4, so that you will find favor and good understanding in the sight of not just God and man. You are the sum total of the 5 best friends that you have. I think that's the way that the old expression goes. Your 5 closest associates, your 5 closest friends who have the most influence on you and the most effect on who you are, your personality, what your likes and dislikes are, your interests and the way that you speak and what you say. Those 5 people around you that orbit your life, and you are part of someone else's orbit, those 5 people that orbit your life, they have the greatest influence on you. Are they merciful people? Are they people of truth? Are they people of the book? Are they people of God? If they are, odds are you will be too. Just by positive peer pressure, they'll push you toward the Lord. Are they not? Then they will push you away from the Lord. And you can go into every peer group and you can go into every situation you want. And you can say, well, I'll be the influence on them. And I hope that you can be. But statistically, generally, the more that you have around you that's evil, the more evil you will become. They'll have the influence on you because you're pushing against the tide and you're going to get wet. So let mercy and truth not forsake you. Why? So that you will be surrounded by people who don't let mercy and truth forsake you. You'll gravitate and people will gravitate toward you because you're a merciful person and a truthful person. Verse 5, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Why? In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Trust in the Lord because you want to go where he's leading you. In all your ways acknowledge him. Why? Because you want to let him take you where he wants you to go. You can be stubborn, and you can be bullheaded, and you can push, and you can fight, and you can butt, and you can say, no, I want to go there, I want to do that. And God's not going to make you. You want to go there, he's going to let you, and then you'll end up in a ditch. And then you'll cry to him and he'll help you out. And then he's going to say, now follow me. Trust me and I will direct your steps. And if you follow those steps, to the right place you'll go. Verse 7, be not wise in your own eyes. Why? Because it will be health to your navel, the King James says, and marrow to your bones. Same reason as before. You'll live longer. You'll live better. You'll have a happier life, as we'll talk about in Ecclesiastes. You'll have a life with purpose if you follow the Lord, not yourself. Verse 9, honor the Lord with your substance. Give God what is right, not what is left. Why? So your barns will be filled with plenty, and your presses will burst out with new wine. You want a bountiful harvest? The meaning here, give God from the last harvest. Give God the leftover, give God the bottom of the barrel, and don't expect a great harvest, because that great harvest that you have is a blessing from God, and God gave you that harvest. God blessed you with that harvest. God gave you that bounty. God gave you that gift. If he can give and hold back. If he can give not. If he can give to, he can give from. He can take away. So you want the blessing, you got to bless God, and God will bless you. And that is not the lie of the prosperity gospel that Joel Osteen and his acolytes teach. That is not what that is. They say, if you want to have the happiest and best life you can possibly have on earth, give me all of your money, and God will bless you. But that's not what God says. God does not say, give me all your money. I don't want your money. I'm not even going to make a joke. I don't want your money. There's no telling what I would do with it. I would waste it. Don't give me your money. Give God your money, and God will bless you. You think, well, how do I write a check to God? I put one in a collection plate, but that's going to the church, right? That's not going to God. The church, the elders, are the stewards that God has put in charge of that. So in so giving to them, you are giving to the Lord. You're not giving to the preacher. You're not giving to some rando guy. You're giving to the Lord. You're giving to the work of the Lord. For what purpose? Luke 6:38. Given it shall be given to you. From whom? I'm not giving to you. The elders aren't given to you. God is giving to you. Given it shall be given to you. And then you take a basket, a big old empty basket. And you think, I'm going to collect all the blessings that God has given me. And Jesus says, all right, hold out your basket. Here it comes. And you can take the blessings he gives you, and you can push it down to hold more, and it's still going to be overflowing. Pressed down, shaken together, running over will men pour into you. Why? If you give, it will be given to you. That's just what the Master says. It is not, if you give, I'll make sure you have the most comfortable, easy life on earth. That's the lie of the prosperity gospel. You might still have a terrible life on this planet, but you will be buying into the sacrificial idea that this world is not your home, and that will pay dividends for eternity. Give, and it will be given to you. Why? So that I can give more, so that I can get more, in order to give more, in order to get more. The prosperity gospel is, give so that you can have the secret to getting more. Give and you can get more, and then it stops. I'll give it, and God will give me, and then I'll stop, and I'll cash out. No, God is not running a casino. You give, and God will give, and then when you have, you'll give more, because you'll have more, and so you'll get more, so you get more. Give God what is right, and watch the blessings flow. Finally, verse 11 and 12 again. My son, don't despise your spanking. Don't be wary of his correction, for verse 12, for whom the Lord loves, he corrects, even as a father does his son in whom he delights. We are all children of God. We are all children of the Father, and every now and then our Father has to say, pop, no. And we have to be reminded not to do that. And in so being reminded, we're reminded that God loved us enough to do that. You see your little child reaches for the hot stove. First time he's doing this. First time, okay? What do? Now, you could be a bad parent, and you could say, let's see what happens. No, you know what's going to happen. They're going to touch the stove, and they're going to burn their hands. Instead, what should you do? You should pop their hand, a momentary sting. It'll go away in about 30 seconds, and then once they're done, you can say, I did that to stop you from something worse that was going to happen. I did that to teach you stove is hot. They don't have to touch the stove to know it's hot. You know it's hot. Your job as a parent is to smack their hand and tell them stove is hot. And then they associate that pain, that short pain, with heat and the pain that would come if they touched it, because if they didn't have you, they would touch it and they would burn. They would linger a lot longer than a little smack would burn. Now, just sidebar, you tell your kid stove is hot, they keep reaching. You smack them, stove is hot, they keep reaching. At some point, let them touch the stove. At some point, they're going to learn. That's because they're not listening to you, so they got to learn the hard way. But first time around, smack their hand. And here's what they'll learn. They'll learn, don't touch stove or I get smacked. I don't know why they talk like cavemen. Don't touch the stove or I get smacked. Second thing they'll learn is, they won't appreciate it to their older. They'll learn, you love them enough to give them a little pain, to keep them from a lot of pain. Don't smack their hand. Don't discipline them. Let them just touch the stove the first time, and they will look at you, and they'll expect you to help them, and hopefully you will. And you know what they'll learn? They'll learn stove is hot. They'll learn you didn't care enough to stop them from touching the stove. And that one, Band-Aid's not fixing that one. That'll be with them for a long time. So appreciate your spanking, because it's a sign of love. That's Proverbs. That's a father's advice to his son. Do I need that? You better believe it. I need to hear every single bit of that advice. Not as a dad, but just as a person, as a human being, as a child of my Father in heaven. Now let's jump over to Ecclesiastes. Well, Proverbs 1:8 was the verse that was read to us. Advice that goes both directions. Let's go to Ecclesiastes. Chapter 1, verse 12 through 17. I know it says 14, but I want to read a little bit less. A little bit more, I mean. Ecclesiastes 1. If you're not familiar with the book of Ecclesiastes, basically the book is Solomon taking all of his wealth and all of his influence and all of his power and all that he has at his disposal, which was given to him by God, and putting it to practice in a great social thought experiment. And his thought experiment is this. Is there any happiness in this world without God? Is there any satisfaction in this life without God? If I use all of my influence and all of my wealth and all of my abilities at my disposal, can I attain enough worldliness to fill my belly to such an extent where I don't need anything else, where I don't feel any emptiness, where I feel like I have everything that I could need and I'm satisfied and I'm content and I'm happy? Can I find all of that without God? So Solomon goes about and does all of that. He lives in all the kinds of ways you could live and does all the kinds of things you could do, and he indulges and he lives up to excess, and then he says, here's what I found, which we'll get to that in a second, but Ecclesiastes is the journal of his findings. Look at chapter 1. I'm going to read verses 13 through 17. Solomon says, I gave my heart to seek and search out wisdom concerning all the things that are under heaven, the sore travail that God has given to the sons of men to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity, and my Bible says vexation of spirit. We'll come back to that. That which is crooked cannot be made straight. That which is wanting cannot be numbered. I commune with my own heart, saying, Lo, I am come to a great estate. I have gotten more wisdom than all that have been before me in Jerusalem. My heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge, and I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly, and I perceived that all of this is, again the phrase in my Bible, vexation of spirit, literally chasing and chasing and chasing, but not ever grabbing, vexation of spirit, wind. It was in the early 90s that Garth Brooks released the album Ropin' the Wind. How do I know that? Because I grew up on a farm. I don't know if you know that. So I know that. He roping the wind. You cannot rope the wind. You cannot grab the wind. You can chase and you can chase and you can chase, but you cannot ever seize and hold the wind. You can go outside and you can open your hand and you can feel the wind pushing against your palm. You can feel the wind blowing between your fingers. But if you snatch your hand closed and you hold it tight to your chest and you run inside and you open your hand, you will not feel a small little gust of breeze lingering in your palm. It's not there. You cannot grab the wind. Solomon, throughout Ecclesiastes, equates a pursuit in life of worldly pleasure, equates indulging in pleasures of the belly, equates a life without God. No matter how much you have or don't have, whatever you do or don't do, if it is done or not done without God, you are just trying to grab hold of something that isn't there. It's not tangible, which is the great irony of it, because God is a spirit. You can't grab him, and yet he provides something that is tangible, that feels secure and feels real. But the world, which is just full of stuff that you can touch and you can tangibly grab hold of, if you make that your pursuit, it's like trying to grab the wind. It's like trying to reach out for something that isn't there. It's emptiness. So Solomon says, I've spent all my wisdom and all my experience and all my money and all that I had to try to grab hold of something without God, and I just kept grasping the wind. And what a waste that kind of life is. Skip over to chapter 2. Let's read a little bit. This is verse 17 through 26. Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me. For all is vanity and vexation of spirit, chasing the wind. Yea, I hated all my labor that I've taken under the sun, because I should leave it to the man that is after me. And who knows whether he'll be a wise man or a fool? Yet shall he have rule over all my labor wherein I've labored. And what do I have to show for myself as wise under the sun? This is vanity. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and knowledge and equity. Yet to a man who has not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This also is vanity and a great evil. For what has a man of all his labor and the vexation of his heart, wherein he has labored under the sun? For all his days are sorrows, his travail is grief. Yea, his heart takes no rest in the night. This is vanity. There is nothing better for a man than he should just eat and drink and make his soul enjoy good in his labor. And this I saw, that it was from God. That simply just means if all you're doing is working, you're not enjoying the life that God gave you, what a waste that life is. How do you enjoy it is the secret of the book. For who can eat and who can hasten hereunto more than me? For God gives it to a man that is good in his sight, wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner he gives travail, to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This is vanity and the vexation of spirit. What is he talking about? It's basically this. If you don't have God, just forget about it for a minute. Forget God. Now you have you in this world. This life is just you. What are you going to do? Well, I guess I got to live, so I got to work. And I want some things. I want pleasure and I want enjoyment. I want satisfaction, because if I don't have God, I've got to find something that will give me that sense of satisfaction, something that will give me that sense of completion in myself. So I will work and work and work to make money, and I will use that money to buy things. But I will never be able to enjoy those things because I'm spending all my time, instead of enjoying them, working to make the money to buy more things. And that cycle will just continue and continue and continue till you're dead. And then what? Then all of these things that you've accumulated will be left to some other guy who didn't work for them, who doesn't know how to use them, who will probably just squander them. Because you were wise, you knew how to, diversify your investments and increase your portfolio and all that other nonsense jargon I don't understand. But the next guy, he's an idiot. He's just going to blow all your money. You don't know what he's going to do with it. That's just a waste then. You look back and you think, what a waste. I spent all my time attaining all that money to spend all that money on things that someone else is going to enjoy and just blow. What's the point of it all? There isn't one. The whole of your life is just a big fat waste of time without God. Keep going. Look at chapter 6. Let's read the first 9 verses. Here's an evil that I've seen under the sun. It's common among men. A man to whom God has given riches and wealth and honor, so that he lacks nothing of his soul, all that he desires, yet God gives him not the power to eat thereof, but a stranger eats it. This is vanity and an evil disease. What's that mean before we continue? You've heard this expression. You could probably finish it. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't what? Make him drink. Right, you're the horse. God can lead you to water, but he can't make you drink. God can shower you with blessings. God can give you all that you need. God could even give you everything you could ever want, but God can't make you enjoy it. God can lead you to water, but he can't make you drink. God can give you the food, but he can't make you eat it. Even if you eat it, he can't make you appreciate it. He cannot make you not look over at what the other guy has and wish you had that instead. That's the point he's making. Keep going. If a man can beget 100 children and live many years, so that the days of his years be many, but his soul is not filled with good, and he has no proper burial, he's not buried with honor and distinction and a great reminder of all that he accomplished, I say, it'd be better for him not to be born or stillborn. An untimely birth is better than he. A stillborn child comes in with vanity and departs in darkness. His name is covered in darkness. No one other than his immediate family, no one knows him, because he had no deeds that he performed or lived, no life that he accomplished. You could live 1,000 years twice over. But if you see no good, don't you all go to the same place? Whether you're rich or poor, good or bad, whether you live a lot or do a little or do a lot, we're all going to go in the same hole in the ground in the end. And all the labor of man is for his mouth, and his appetite is not filled. For what has the wise more than the fool? What has the poor to knoweth to walk before the living? Better is the sight of eyes, better what you can see, than the wandering of the desire, wishing what you had or don't have. That is also vanity and the vexation of spirit. You're going to live for as long as you're going to live. And while you're here, you're going to accomplish a lot, but maybe you won't. Maybe you'll accomplish a little. Maybe you'll be very rich, maybe you'll be very poor. Maybe you'll have a great amount of blessings, and maybe you'll just have scraps to get by day. But God cannot make you appreciate what you have, whether it's a lot or a little. He cannot stop your eyes from going away from what you have and drifting toward what you wish you had. And if that's your life, if you don't have God, that's all you're going to be doing. It's just accumulating and wishing you had more. Like the famous, probably a billionaire, Montgomery Burns said, I have all this money, and I will give it all away for just a little bit more. That's the mentality of the world. If all you have is just stuff, then all you'll want is stuff, and the world will keep churning out stuff. The world is a factory for stuff. You have no contentment. You have no satisfaction. You have no sense within yourself of peace. And so you'll keep wanting. Your eyes will keep wandering and desiring for more, and you'll never be content because you don't have God. Which takes Solomon to the end of the book, chapter 12, which begins with that famous phrase, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. But he's not just saying, young people, remember your Creator. He's saying, not just that, but when you're old, because the rest of chapter 12 is about being old. When you're old and you're doubled over and your back aches and you can't hear as well anymore and the sound of children just annoys you. This is not necessarily old people, but this is what he's talking about. And you have all these things going on and your eyes don't work anymore and your teeth are falling out and your hair has gone gray. You have all these problems, all this age. You're this close away from dying. You're just about dead. Remember then that God was with you when you were young and stout, and you could take on the world. Remember then that God was with you then. And he tells that to a young person because he's writing to his son. He's saying, here is this life before you, generally speaking. Here is this life that you will probably kind of sort of live. And at the end of it, you'll be old and doubled over. Remember then that God is with you now. We'll be with you on the journey to old age, and we'll still be with you when you're old. Because if you forget that, you're still going to grow old, generally speaking. You're still going to lose your hearing. You're still going to be doubled over. Your hair is still going to be gray, whatever you have left. Your teeth are still going to fall out. The sound of sounds outside after 4:30, after bedtime, is going to be annoying to you. You still have all those things, but you won't have God. So what then? Then what's left? What's next? Death. That's it. And then what will you be? Once death comes, what will you be? Dust. You go back to the hole in the ground. What was Adam without God? Yeah, I know God made the dust from which he made Adam, but put that aside. What was Adam without God? Dust. He breathed. He molded and he breathed into that the breath of life. What are you without God? Dust. What are any of us? Dust. With God, without God, your life has no purpose. You live, you accumulate, you spend, you have a little bit of fun here and there. Mostly you're just annoyed all the time, and then you die. And that's it. What's the point of that? With God, you live, you spend a little bit, you have a little fun, you enjoy life, you're good to other people, your life has meaning, your life has purpose, you're truthful, you're merciful, you're sacrificial, you're serving. You have some feeling of, I have a reason for being here, I have a thing to do, I have something to strive for, I have a goal, I have a life to live. And then you feel this sense of completion and contentment. And you'll look over there and you'll see this guy who has a lot more money than you. Doesn't matter. Because what you have is not money. What you have is the riches of eternity. And you'll have that, and then you'll grow old, and you'll have the riches of eternity with gray hair. And you'll have God. And you'll have a sore, aching back with God. And you won't be able to hear with God. And then eventually you won't be able to walk. You'll be bedridden with God. And then eventually you'll close your eyes, never to open them again, with God. And your life will have had meaning. And so will it continue to. So Solomon says, don't do what I did. I did a thought experiment. I spent it all, I did it all to learn. It's a waste of time. But having God, fearing God, and keeping his commandments, that makes life worthwhile. That's advice to sons. It's good advice for me and you as well. Real quick before we close, let's go to Song of Solomon. Not fathers. Fathers choose wisdom over foolishness. Sons, chase after God, godliness. Make that your pursuit, not the wind. Husbands, cherish your spouse. Cherish your spouse by holding her tightly. Listen to the betrothed of Solomon, Song of Solomon 2:6. She simply says, his left hand is under my head, his right hand does embrace me. A physical embrace, a close holding, is just as important as all the other ways we show love for our beloved. You can do an act of service. You can mow the yard for her if she lets you mow the yard. My wife doesn't let me. I'm not complaining. She doesn't let me mow the yard. Probably because she used to let me, and now that's the end of that. Anyway, that's not about her. It's not about me. Not the point. You can do your acts of service. You can go buy her a random drink when she has a headache, or you can make the bed at a random occasion, or whatever. You can do those things. That's an expression of love. Okay? There are other ways that you express your love. You can speak it. You can speak it. You can tell her every time she enters and leaves the room. You can say it randomly. You can text her at all odd hours of the day or the night, in the middle of the night. She rolls over, and you're right there, and you send her a text at 3 a.m. that says, I love you. And she'll roll over to say it back, and you're just snoring away. Not that has actually happened, but that's just an example. You can do all those things. Don't negate the fact that you can grab her and hold her and embrace her. Physical touch is an expression of not just intimacy, but love in general. Look at another one. Husbands, don't just hold her tightly. Describe her enchantingly. Look at chapter 4, verses 1 through 4. Behold, this is Solomon talking. You are fair, my love. You are fair. You have dove's eyes within your locks. Your hair is like a flock of goats that appear from Mount Gilead. One would assume that was a compliment back then. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep that are even shorn, that come up from the washing. They're all white. That's a pro. That's a plus. Everyone has twins, and none of them are barren. You don't have any missing teeth in the middle. Also a plus. Your lips are like a thread of scarlet. Your speech is comely. Your temples, your cheeks, he means, are like a piece of pomegranate within your locks. Dark hair probably she had, but peeking out from it were these beautiful rosy cheeks that attracted him. Your neck is like a long tower of David, built for an armory wherein they hang 1,000 bucklers and shields for the mighty man, which is just ancillary. But the point is, you have a big long neck. Something else he found attractive in her. He describes her, in other words. And listen, this love letter is now in posterity for all of us to read forevermore. Yours, one would assume, are private. But in so writing them, describe her enchantingly. And don't just make it private. Tell other people how much you love your wife. Tell other people how much you adore her, how much you are physically attracted to her, but also mentally and emotionally, how much you were in love with her. I sent my mother-in-law a random text just a few weeks ago, just saying how much I was thankful that she let me marry her daughter. We were going to marry anyway, but they let us get married. How thankful I am that they let that happen, because she's the best thing other than Christ that's happened to me. All right, describe her enchantingly. Last one, then I'm done. Want her physically. Want her physically. Look at chapter 7. Oh, you know what? I actually want to go back. I forgot to say something. No. Sorry. My bad, yo. Hold her tightly. And, yeah, describe her enchantingly, because when you don't, that's what I meant to say. When you put her down in private, in public, you don't always appreciate that you are the biggest affector of her self-esteem. And she yours. At least that's how it's supposed to be. You come together, you're no longer half and half, you're one. And so it's like half you. It's like half of you. The other part of you is letting you down. So don't put her down in public. Don't attack her publicly. If you got something to say, you go to your bedroom and you shut the door and you say it privately. But you are the biggest affector of her self-esteem. So remember that. You hold that in your hands as she holds yours, in yours. All right, anyway. Not just that, but also want her physically. Look at chapter 7, first 2 verses. He says, how beautiful are your feet with shoes, O prince's daughter. The joints of your thighs are like jewels, the work of hands of a cunning workman. Your navel is like a round goblet that wants not drink. Your belly is like a heap of wheat set about with lilies. Skip down to verse 9. The roof of your mouth is like the best wine for my beloved. It goes down sweetly. It causes the lips of those that are asleep to speak. I love everything about you from the inside out, and I love the outside of you too. But I don't just love you physically. I love you mentally, and I love you emotionally, but I love you physically. And other people may see my wife. I don't think this is the case. But other people, well, let's not say my wife. Whew, let's go all the way over here. Other people may see your spouse and not see the appeal, okay? They may see your wife and say, I don't get what he sees in her. Probably they're saying that about you, gentlemen, but related to her. But maybe it's the case. They'll look at your wife and they think, I don't get what he sees in her. Who cares what they see in her? What do you see in her? And you better see something in her, because she's yours. So you should think of her in that way, and you should want to see her in that way, and you should be looking at only her in that way. Want her physically, because she is physically yours and no one else's, and you are physically hers and no one else is either. Advice from the wise man. 2 technically sons, but we turned it around to fathers. Good advice that we need to be reminded of all throughout Proverbs. Advice to sons that we need to be reminded of while we're still young, while we still have life in front of us, to chase after godliness and not the wind of the world. And advice for those of us who are husbands, to be reminded of what true romance looks like under the auspices of God, under the sight of God, that we embrace our spouse in all the various ways that we can and love her and she him exclusively. If you are here this morning, you're not a child of God, if you're not a Christian, here's your opportunity to become a child of God, a child of the Father, saved by Jesus Christ, who in that sense, when you are saved by him, he becomes your elder brother, to whom you go for counsel and support all the time too. You get a chance to be wedded to God, through Jesus, or to Christ through Jesus Christ as a child of God. He becomes your husband, you become his bride. And as much as great as you may think you are as a husband, there's never been a better husband for us than Jesus Christ. He will always hold us closely. He will always describe us with wonderful words. Your Bible's filled with them. And he will always want us in his presence at all times. So if you have wandered away from his presence, here's your opportunity to be restored, to come back to him. If we can help you, let us know how right now as we stand and sing.